guys. Welcome. We're going to begin our conversation. I'm sure you remember seeing myself and Isaiah yesterday. So it's not that we're having the same conversation, but we're going to continue the conversation about metaverse and actually social services and the different impacts that metaverse can support within the social system. So there's a lot of conversation in that space, Isaiah. I just think overall people don't really look at it. But for you, you actually built out a system. We're just going to start with that. How you
Oh.
were able to process DMV, which is to me a social service, because most of us kind of don't want to stand in that line. So can you kind of talk us through how you guys envision that and how you work through, and then the outcome from that?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, everyone, as we mentioned before, I'm Isaiah Reese and CEO of Blaze Fire Games, and when we talk about, we're happy to hear both of us. We had some passionate discussion over the last day or so, talking about just the impact of what the metaverse does and how it can help change lives, both for the greater good and being watchful of that. And so, the subject matter about social services and how does the metaverse distribute social services, especially in a changed society, really helps us talk about. So, so one of the things we talk about, as my colleagues, esteemed colleagues, talking about, is how we are using, not only us but many other companies like your company also, is trying to say we are now in a different time. Uh, Metaverse allows us to now the expectation even more about resolving social issues, right?
It's
So
really
so
big on
let's
solving
yeah.
social issues.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we talk about like the importance of that. So as we start with that, before we start talking about some of the things that we're doing, I really want to bounce back to my colleague and let's talk about, you know, even with the work you're doing from the education piece, and I saw your passion with that yesterday, of how important it is that the metaverse should be involved with resolving social issues.
Should be really, yeah, I agree 100% focused on solving social issues, because I know very much like a lot of people or students or kids that are out there, um, you're not very sociable in a sense in real world, but I'm a rock star when it comes to tech world. Social world, I'm not really that great, but what it does is it allows you to be the best version of you in that space and really focus in the areas where you dominate and to build those skills. So from that perspective, when you look at education, a lot of our kids right now, and I'm going to say visual stimulation,
Yes.
is not very positive in the classroom.
Right. Right.
And the kids are like randomly all over. But I think the introduction of the metaverse will allow them to be centrally focused on what the expected outcome is, because the distractions are now removed and you really focus on the content and you focus on the academic, versus on what is KK wearing, what conversation are you having, who's
Right.
texting.
Right.
So it kind of removes all of that and allows you to focus. So for people like me, I'm like like as you see the ball drop and run. I'm that person. I'll stop and pay attention to that. So yeah.
That's a great point, that you're making around resolving these social issues. So let's think about that student or adult who's an introvert,
Mhm.
right? So we can talk about really what social services are, right? So I think
Mhm.
we should probably even talk about defining that. And social services could be education, K through 12,
Yes.
Department of Social Services,
Yeah.
hospitals, all those things. So how, when we're talking about how the metaverse distributes these social services, it's really about how the metaverse is also improving it. Think about it. Social services with through the metaverse offers this free, barrier-free society now,
Yes.
meaning allowing you to be a lot more open and engaging. Think about it. During the time of the pandemic, we really went to where, oh wow, we're doing a lot more Zoom, but now we're addressing this piece with social services
Yeah.
about engaging how the metaverse can actually engage now through avatars, through we will say Zoom, but let's
Right.
go a little bit deeper than that. But really, how it's allowing free societal engagement,
Mhm.
removing those barriers, because when you're building out a world for
Yeah.
them to participate and
That's
engage
different.
in, like what we see with STEM City,
Yes.
then that allows more service to be addressed.
Right.
You can now address things that are happening at home, whether it's domestic abuse or
Yeah.
whatever it is, child abuse, because now that student or that person can say, I can now convert myself into something. But now we're actually
Yeah.
having those social workers really come in the
Mhm.
playground where that service is needed,
And have
right?
that
In
conversation.
that way.
Yeah.
which
in
is
real
different,
time.
right?
And
It's not
transportation is
say
not an issue. See, that's what we're good. Transportation is a big issue in reality, but to your point, it's not in the metaverse.
yeah,
So if you are watching, be sure to check out stemcityusa.com and kind of take a look when we say metaverse. And know some of you may not be as familiar with it as we are, but just kind of take a look at what that looks like. Because to your point, Isaiah, when you think about it, if you're a woman that's being battered and you're being
absolutely,
uh, really your opportunities to leave the home 9 times out of 10 are tracked. So you really don't have that luxury of getting in the car, going down to see a counselor. But wouldn't it be great to just jump into the metaverse and say, hey, these are my issues. Can you help and support me? So that's really an amazing opportunity for people to dive in. Now, the other thing that I really like, because everyone's about that self care,
absolutely.
you can go into virtual meditation spaces, and I do that quite often for 15 minutes during the day.
Hmm.
Sometimes I just need to kind of get away from what's happening in my real world because I don't think people understand when you're a CEO, it's demanding,
It's
right?
demanding.
It
It's
gets a little
demanding.
stressful because everybody's pulling at you,
Yeah,
and you don't always have all the answers,
right.
but you need a moment to kind of kick back and redefine yourself. So I think that's one of the things that the metaverse offers for anyone.
Yeah, and also from a corporate standpoint, it's an extension of corporate activity.
It is.
When we think about what became really really important over the last several years, unfortunately, with a lot of incidents that are currently still happening
Yeah.
in our society, is this extension of this social impact.
Yes.
So when we think about what the metaverse can actually do with distributing social services, we think about corporations who, hey, you those offices that are giving out all this millions and millions from a philanthropy
Yes.
foundation standpoint, the type of social impact that they could have in underserved
Oh my gosh, in
markets
a
and
metaverse,
communities.
that would be rock
Right. I
star.
mean, think about it. You're giving out $100 million,
Yes.
and so we talked about this, once before during the George Floyd unfortunate situation. There was $50 billion committed from
Yeah.
corporations, but not even a portion of that from based on research has been even
Distributed.
distributed out.
Yeah.
So here it is, the social impact.
Which I say don't leave out. It was 100% focused on supporting minority owned
And it
businesses.
was minority
Yeah.
business or minority or underserved market
Right.
organizations, nonprofits. Some great nonprofits that the money
Right.
went to. Don't get me wrong, but now we have this challenge. This money has set out there
Right.
as we approach his third year
Not as
of his
not
death.
even allocated.
So let me ask you something. So when we think about STEM City,
Yeah.
right, and the technology that's available here in that metaverse world, it's almost like we have to challenge ourselves now to say, hey, for those corporate partners who didn't give out their monies,
Right.
here's how we want you to still distribute these social services,
Yes.
because that is to improve the mental capacity, right,
Yes.
to erase the technology gap, the
Yes.
racial inequities. So, right, to be
Yeah,
able to do
because
that.
the digital inequality that we look at in urban and rural areas is 100% way behind. So look at it from this perspective: the people who truly need the support can't get to the services that they need,
Right,
which is a great concern, right?
right,
So I know we're saying social services, but that's the same community that does not have Wi-Fi connectivity. They don't have
absolutely.
devices at home. So to your point, all of those corporations who wanted to give money, that would have been a great hotspot. But to be totally honest with you, it should have been something that they could have accessed. And I think a lot of times the confusion is the metaverse does not require you to have headgear. A lot of people think that. So if you have a phone, if you have a tablet, you could have entered into a metaverse and you could have said, hey, the only device I have is my phone. I would like to participate and to manage my social needs through your website or through your metaverse. Is it possible if I can request a laptop? See, that's how you manage it because
Right.
then you know specifically where it's going. That person's information is then cross checked with their local social services organization. And if they're getting what we call food stamps, which are not food stamps anymore, they're
Right.
like credit cards,
Snap
right?
benefits.
They're called
Right.
SNAP benefits.
Right. Right.
So when you look at it from that perspective, if a person did sign up, normally most of them have like it's sign in. So they would sign in, but those then you know is going directly to the population that needs it.
I mean, really, the metaverse on social, just distributing social services, truly about addressing the tech
Yeah.
policy gaps and racial
Yes.
and mental, really, equity or inequities
Yeah.
is probably a better way. Just
It's
being
just
totally transparent of
is
what
that a
it
word? Did
is.
we just make up a
Yeah, we
word?
just make a
Okay, we
word.
made
It's
a
like,
word.
okay, we're like, hey, wait a minute, this is unequal. This is
Yes.
it hasn't. It's been unequal now with the education piece, and we know that, right? It
Yes.
was been. We saw what happened with the pandemic, where the who did it impact the most
Yes.
when it came to healthcare disparities?
Yes.
Who did it impact the most when it came to the education side? We look at the studies have shown how far students are behind, and we can't really blame it on that. It's almost like that was a cop out because the metaverse allows when we're distributing social service. Remember,
Yes.
education is part of it. The question we really need to step back and say, were you, i.e., K through 12 or higher ed, ready? Why did you take so long to be ready for what was
Already
already
there.
there
Yeah.
that you could have activated? So don't blame it on the fact that you just weren't ready for what was already happening around you. Here was a metaverse. It's not like something like STEM City, that wasn't
Exactly.
already there, or some of the other metaverse platforms. But I think there's a chance when we think about extended reality and blockchain, these are virtual worlds, right? It allows the social connections, entertainment,
But
fitness
Isaiah, you're saying
space.
big words like blockchain. In our community, we just can't. We
We-
toss out words because they're common to us.
Right.
But blockchain, if you're explaining it to a person who didn't understand blockchain nor the metaverse
Yes.
and how it can be supported, what is like a key phrase that you could use to break down what blockchain is?
You know what? Instead of using the word, to your point of saying the word of blockchain,
Yeah.
because that wouldn't be used if we were going in our communities, what I would call going in the neighborhood,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
But if we started saying something about, hey, we're going to help you guys create a virtual learning space.
Right.
So let's break it down. I'm all about the simplistic things, right?
Hmm.
Look, I know the definition of blockchain and we'll explain all that, but I tell people sometimes we get too techy. We
Right.
miss out on, okay, here was explained to me like I was a third grader. And here it is, virtual workplace or a place where your kid or student or you can receive social services and you don't have to leave your home, but we can make it really, really cool. So
Hmm.
again, so let's bring it back to how do we distribute social
Right.
services before we get into, oh, we can do an NFT. Well, that wait, I need to know how if
Right.
I need social services, how can I get to it?
Right.
Because we also got to think about this thing because there's a mental health crisis that
It's a
could come
huge
out of
mental
that. It
health
could
crisis.
scare people, right?
I
And so we
definitely,
have
and
to
I
look
think
at
in our
these.
community, it does scare
It
people,
does,
and they're the ones who need it.
right. So we
So
could cause digital harm, what we call in the market, what I
exact.
call digital
Mhm.
harm. Digital harm can also be caused by the metaverse if it's not actually applied in the right way. Um, that's the use of using all these things, but we're talking about algorithms. Oh, your
Right.
neighborhood is like we're perpetuating this myth or this thought that you're bad in your neighborhood because of the
Right.
crime and all that. So so when we think about distributing social services, helping the police, so let's even move to a social service, which is the police force,
Where they do
as we
use
look at
blockchain.
society, where they use with blockchain. But now let's talk about can we
Yeah.
take it bigger than just the body cams through metaverse? In your opinion,
So
we're training.
we're training them, and one of the things that I
No,
do like
with training,
with training, yes,
with training police
with the
activity.
body
How do
cam
you think that's a social service?
hmm
How do you think metaverse
could help with that.
can help with that?
One of the things I will say that we're doing really great in Detroit now is that not only do we have body cams, but we have street cams. And the street
Mhm.
cams are automatically turned on. And we also have what we call our gun alert radar, which means that any gunshots, an alert goes off because it's sent at a certain frequency to hear a gun. But it's also the same frequency. I want to be clear that you hear when your car backfires. But what it does is they put those things in place. But to your point, even with all those different things that we've been incorporated in the city of Detroit, which we call smart tech, that additional training in the metaverse will be great because now you can have a clear understanding how to manage situations instead of being addressed with it in real life and not being put into it's one thing to read about it, but it's one thing to experience it.
Mhm.
And the only thing I can kind of correlate with that is that when the army or the military itself uses the metaverse to train the people that go overseas, it's equivalent to that because now they're better prepared on how to handle certain situations, how to communicate effectively within that environment because a lot of them don't speak English. So it's the same thing. And I think, with us allowing the metaverse to be used in different ways to support social service, we're actually enhancing in real world better training opportunities and being able to reduce the mental and emotional impact when you are faced with those issues.
Yeah, when one of the articles that I was um, really impressed about, I actually had done some research on this. Tam and Rice in 2018 did an article released research paper, white paper on
Mhm.
the social pressing issues and how social work, the social work public service side of what we're talking about needed the metaverse,
Yeah.
right? And they talk about this what they call the AI for public health, right? And they address all these different things like disease control, treatment policies, are really pressing issues in
Right.
our societies. And I say our society, meaning societies of all, right? Black, white culture, all type of economic social disparities, right? And how it allowed, because they were utilizing this, how they were able to use these tools of qualitative research to be able to address the most pressing issues, and how they could better also distribute those social services.
Mhm.
Meaning, in a metaverse world, you had someone who was more comfortable. Again, I'm gonna go back to that.
Mhm.
Coming into a room who was being abused, domestic
Yes.
abuse or whatever, he or she, because it is he or she,
Mhm.
can be both or either or, was more comfortable converting themselves into an avatar to
Yes.
address that they were being abused at home by their mate. So so we can't be afraid of the metaverse, and how
Right.
so we need to fast track this and say, hey, it's not just knocking on the doors anymore
It's not.
physically, right? That you can knock on that door by walking into a metaverse world.
Right.
Wouldn't you agree?
I agree 100%. I think for me, the best way, because I'm the kind of person, I don't talk about situation. I actually go into that community. I sit down and speak with them. And I really like that I get a firsthand experience on what their needs are. And then I can take it back to the team or to that municipality and say, hey, this is where the issues are. We think that all the services that we have available are reaching that community, but we're missing a step in there because this is what they're not getting. This is what they're saying. So, to your point, if we take a different approach, if we start going out to the schools, we go out to the community centers, we go to the churches, and we have forums like this where people can actually see the metaverse, take them through a STEM city, have each of them just drop on their phone and do an avatar so they can join us in STEM city. Like right now, we're speaking to you in this platform. But how awesome would this have been if
Right.
people were looking at us in the metaverse, avatars of ourselves
Right,
right
right,
now?
right, right.
And we said, okay, for this session, you need to come and watch this in the metaverse. See, that would have been rockstar because that's the application and the experience that we're looking for that oftentimes our community doesn't get, right?
Yeah. But part of this distributed social services also is talking about what we don't want to talk about, or we address it, and that's talking about this low digital literacy skill
Yeah.
in our neighborhood.
Oh, the
Not just
digital
only not
literacy.
only
Yeah.
the digital literacy is just
But you know what?
is
Even
because it's low, and
it
so we're
is
afraid
low.
of it.
And we're well, let me just say this. We know everybody uses their phone. If you can gamble on your phone,
That's right.
you can learn about the metaverse, right? Because they got all these gambling tools, so you're gambling. So to your point, it's like, what is it going to take for us to really get into our communities and sit back and say, hey, this is what's happening. You need to upgrade your digital literacy and understand where you need to be and how you need to be there. Because, like you said, there's a lot of students, there's a lot of parents, there's a lot of people in general, from mental health, from
Yeah.
social emotional skills. They have a lot of tools and resources out there to support social emotional skills. And one of the things that I liked when I was teaching school was that I would have all my kids go online. And I said, even if you can't reach me, I was doing chat spaces online because there was no way I could stay after school and tutor algebra, but it was a way I could go home and still take care of my son and still tutor algebra. So I was doing that stuff back in the day, which now everybody has Google Classroom. So to me, it's like a marvel. It's like if you have these spaces and there's ways to introduce yourself, how we say level up, start at level one, get into Google Classroom at your schools.
Yeah, I mean, so let's think about it. It's an inclusivity standpoint.
Yeah.
In the metaverse world, I know that some of the stuff that we're doing is transcribe. So in our courses, so in any of our content that we're doing now, some of the work we're doing with the juvenile justice, as I know you talked about that earlier, and we got to talk about the language barriers that have faced that, because the metaverse world allows inclusivity that wasn't there. For example, if you walk into one of our classes in our metaverse world and you're speaking English, but you are Spanish, I can go in there and say, "Hola, cómo te llamas?"
Right. You're speaking English,
I'm
but it's
speaking,
translating it.
I'm speaking Spanish, but
Exactly.
I can go in there and say, "Hola, cómo te llamas?" Right? So I'm asking, who are you? Hello, and I'm asking your name. So when it says that, our courses, because of what we're doing in our metaverse world, transcribes that who only understands Spanish into English. I mean,
Right. And that's
I may say
audio
that
and in script.
it's in Trent. That's right. So that the metaverse world. So we've done that in now in all of the Google translated language, including the 27 native tribal different languages.
That's amazing. So
And
there really at this point there's no barrier. There's only an opportunity to expand content comprehension across all content areas and also reach a wider audience using the metaverse.
yeah,
So I think like the first step. So if you had to think about first steps to introduce this to our community, what would you do? What
and,
would be your scenario?
and I think our communities, when we're saying this to everyone, we're
Mhm.
talking about our community. That means so we're not forgetting our sisters and brothers of the reservations that are out there, tribal
Right.
Americans. We're not
Mhm.
forgetting, Hispanic serving, population. So
Mhm.
when you're talking about, of course, some of the outlining areas when it comes to African Americans and some of the populated areas. Listen, let's think about this first step. But let's not walk away from, look, I'm originally from South Carolina, right? The kid that lives in Minnesota now in the snow from South Carolina. But South Carolina, sadly, and I'm always upfront when we're talking to
Mhm.
everyone, it's always the southern states that have the worst obesity rates. That's a social service issue. So imagine the metaverse is talking about healthy eating
Yes.
from what we've heard some of our speakers earlier this morning
Right.
and some of their building this virtual world about the proper way of preparing foods,
Mhm.
even with growing. Like for me in the summer, I'm the South Carolina kid, but on my deck, I actually grow my vegetables,
Awesome.
right? Natural,
Mhm.
right? So you got to think about now. Let's take that into the metaverse world. What I
Mhm.
heard earlier with some speakers, they're amazing worlds, like what they're building. See, we want to go help Africa and everywhere else. Like I love that,
Right.
right? But I'm like, this gives us a chance now addressing this social. How do you distribute social services? Well, maybe we can step back and address the bottom states that have the lowest education
Asian. Yes.
rates and the lowest and the highest obesity rates,
Yes. I think
which
that's a
include
great way to
right.
start.
So I would say, how do we start? My first thing was addressing is let's first identify what is the social service area we need to address first. And
Mhm.
what's going to always jump up? Remember, education is a social service issue.
Education pops up.
Health and education.
Yes.
I mean, health is hospitals is a social
Mhm.
service. Policing is a social service.
Mhm.
So, but let's always hit the main two that's been holding us back. Listen, we can talk about all these amazing things that we've been hearing so far this week, like this morning, with the amazing speakers this morning we heard earlier. And I said, okay, I love that. Now, the issues are the social services issue, which
Yes.
is the highest obesity states, the
Mhm.
lowest education, the highest lowest education rate. And then I think that's how we address it. And then we pick their brains to help us address those.
I think that's a great place to start right now. If you look at if you I don't know, I don't have cable, I have Fire Stick and Roku.
That's me.
So if you
That's
go to
me.
Fire Stick and Roku, you can actually work out online with avatars. And so that's the thing. It's called a daily burn workout. Is some actual people, but you can join. And one of the things that I'm finding is that there are a lot of resources out there, but it's like anything else. Everybody knows how to get to the mall, to get to the Nike
Right, right,
store.
right.
You don't know how to roadmap, but the thing is
They know how to
nobody knows.
stand out
They know
line,
how to stay in line
stand out
for the
line
new
for hours
release.
before Black Friday.
Exactly.
Right.
They do. So the thing is, I think, what we're both saying is how do we make this as big a brand or big a concept as a Nike for Black Friday that people want to jump in it, right? And try it out. And it's like, how do you market this to them so that it becomes attractive and marketable to them? To us, we see it as an at ease, but also you have to think about Isaiah, the pushback that you get from municipalities because now they're thinking, okay, we're taking our work to the metaverse. What happens to our workers? And they don't
Well, yeah,
understand you
yeah,
transfer in. It's the same thing.
yeah. And to your point, see, there's currently, if we really think about no policies or regulations that says,
Exactly.
oh, you can't be online. They want to say there's no policy or regulations about online users
It's
or the
not.
tenth line,
Yes.
the amount of time they can prevent you from being on there. We're not in a
Exactly.
common
Mhm.
society that says, no, we're going to cut this off, right?
Right.
But we have to take this from a community centered, holistic approach to prevent all of these possible racial and mental health harms and equities, you know, to the vulnerable groups,
Yes.
right? To the vulnerable, because that's what we're talking
Especially the
about, the vulnerable.
elderly.
And then you're not even talking about the elderly. So think about it. It's funny you say that. You go on the AARP site,
Yes.
even though I haven't got my AARP card yet.
By the way, I
Not,
got my AARP
nope,
card.
nope. Not
I just
if
want
it
to keep it
if
real.
it comes,
I'll
I'm
be
gonna do a return.
52,
If it
so
comes, I'm gonna do a return to sender.
I took my
Right.
card happily.
But this thing, ARP has a section for
Yes.
those of you may not out there called the gaming section.
Yes.
Go in that gaming section for ARP. You will see that they have users for certain
Mhm.
games of 100,000 gamers,
Yes.
200,000 gamers. And why? Because gaming improves the cognitive skills,
It does.
reflective reflexes, cognitive skills. It extends someone's life. It improves how they react from
Yes.
their eyes to their hands. So, hey, I'm a big fan of ARP Gaming Society. One, I do it for the research
Right.
because, unbeknownst to many people, 34% of the population are actually over the age of 50 plus
Yes.
who games. So ARP hit something big with that.
They did.
So again, so think about
It's
that way.
also a relaxation tool to release stress and hypertension.
Right.
So those are really big things in anxiety.
So look at how
Yeah.
that. So where do we? So look at that
Mhm.
tool, that meta. I mean, we have to almost
It
call
was
that a slight metaverse
it
way.
is.
How give ARP credit for going into that because one, this was something. And it's simple games like playing
It
pool.
is.
You can play the pool, and which I haven't on there playing that, and I've
Mhm.
gotten whipped by those.
But it does
Those
help you with your social skills
it
too, because a
does
lot of older
engagement
people,
back to societal
yeah,
engagement. Right.
it is because a lot of people are at home, they're alone, but this is an opportunity for you to kind of talk to somebody who could be in Kansas, somebody in California. You guys are having a game time, right? We all meet
Yeah.
up, and it's just like I think of it as when you have the bowling teams, right?
Right.
That is like you see a lot of older people go bowling, but that's why. Because it's that community engagement that they get from being one another, the social skills that you need to kind of cohort and hang out with your own people. But when you're older or you're a student with special needs, I think it's really great for kids who have autism. And, we talked
Right.
about that for the kids in the
Right.
classroom. Kids with autism are very distracted by noises around them, like the slight bit of noise, and they're 100% distracted. But just think if you could put that kid in the metaverse in the same classroom.
So right now we're talking about our health practitioners and everyone who are out there to
Yes,
say, hey, wake up.
this is an
This is time for you
opportunity.
to now to say your
Yeah.
private practice. So we're talking about little old Clarksdale, Mississippi, right?
Jump into the
That
metaverse.
right, and you only have one urgent little clinic
One
there.
urgent
The
clinic.
same doctor that the mother
Yeah.
and the grandmother and everyone else who went there, right, and now birth everybody.
Mhm.
So that same practitioner now, they probably retired, and now their kids is probably running
Their
that
kid is
clinic.
running it.
So those are the good places, right? But
Yeah.
then, so when you think about little Clarksdale, Mississippi, right, or Clarksville, Mississippi, I think that's what it's at. Clarksdale was Tennessee. Clarksville, Mississippi. So we think about this one place in Clarksville, so social distributing social services.
Mhm.
So we're seeing that as a place, and we think about like Bianca earlier
Mhm.
and her ability to create this virtual world. And she had her amazing colleague, on the panel with her who works with nonprofit. So remember,
Yeah.
just think,
Yeah.
imagine now partnering with them, collaborating with them to say, hey, Bianca, your company, let's look at this, what I call be the big fish in a small pond. See, I think there's a chance now where all of us collectively say,
Yeah.
let's go look at these outlining areas
Mhm.
like Allendale, Fairfax, South Carolina, my native state, right? Which is one, unfortunately, was listed one of the poorest zip codes in the state of South
Mhm.
Carolina. No shame on them for that.
Right.
But here's a positive to say great families live there. I have family that live there, so very proud of all of that. And we think about it to say, why can't we take that to the communities? Because now we're back to a community
Mhm.
centric focus, going into churches and say, here, let's enroll them in. So I would love to be able to say, Bianca, can we
Wouldn't that
give a
be amazing?
platform to the churches or that
Yes.
Clarksville, Mississippi, urgent care
Yes.
that family built
Yes.
and say, now we're going to have a show, you have an open house where we're going to show your patients that are coming
Mhm.
in that they don't have to come in as much. And let's give Grandma Jones a nice little avatar face. And she sits there and her grandkids could look what we're doing. We're building now
Yes.
a family. Listen, when I worked at Coca Cola, the reason why why did you drink Coca Cola? I say, well, you saw what was in the fridge that your mother had and the grandmother
Right.
had. So
You
that's
just
the
kind of
same
go with
thing.
that.
Let's think about what Apple does in the Apple stores when they're around. Apple's think about it. Apple stores, and I'm sure they still do this every Tuesday or every Wednesday held open their stores early, retail
Mhm.
stores early. There was a program they once had where they allowed. I'm gonna say we don't use the word senior citizens.
But
We
the
use the
older
term
kids.
AOAs, active older adults.
Exactly.
I've trademarked that just to let you guys know that, right? Active older adults, AOAs, and they allowed them to come into the mall of the retail stores an hour earlier to learn how to
Yeah.
work the iPads and all those different devices. So look what grandma and grandpa did.
Yeah.
They would always get the newest one. And what did
Yes.
they do? Pass the one that was probably only 2 years old
Right.
down to whom? The
Different kids.
grandkids. And so the grandkids, oh, grandpa gave us a new iPad, or grandma gave us. But what that did, it created this family bond. I believe the metaverse distributing social services allow us to step back. This is our chance right now,
Mhm.
whether through powerful techniques like STEM City, a healthcare category, along with who we've heard speak this week and saying,
Yes.
should we not be the force now that builds this, what I call a metaverse world of distributing social services, health service, and let's just go to the smaller
Communities.
communities?
Yeah. I think that would be great. I think those are the things that I didn't really think about when I created Tech Talks with Chris, that I would find different tech that our community wasn't aware of and I would post it on my Facebook site. And I was just like, I was just thinking everybody was aware. There's actually a device that will tell you every organ in your body whether or not it's functioning correctly and what the issues are, even before you go to the doctor. So when I found that tech, I'm like, send it out to everybody. And then I posted it, but those are things that I think, like you said, tying it back to that metaverse. I guess a lot of people may be wondering, okay, if I am that grandmother and I'm walking into that virtual metaverse, how are they really going to examine me? And what
Right.
people
See, they
fail,
want to be
yeah, they
touched.
want to be
Yeah, right,
touched.
right.
And so the thing is, what they fail to realize, there's so much tech out there. We were talking about it yesterday, how your watch or your phone can tell you whether or not you completed your steps of the
Absolutely.
day.
Yep.
So I want people to understand there's so much tech that ties into the metaverse that it's not going to be a misstep. And if you need specific care, yeah, you definitely should always go see the doctor. But for those regular checkups, this is awesome. Like I said, I got my eye exam. He wasn't even there. The ophthalmologist wasn't even there. The machine was there. The machine did the exam for me. And then he joined me on screen and was just like, well, Christine, this is what we need to do with your script. I was just like, you're not coming into the
Yeah,
office?
you about to
No, I
build
don't.
my insurance for this?
Exactly. So the thing is that we've started making the transitions in so many different areas, that I think at some point we need to just kind of look at how can I be a part of this. We're not saying at level 3, level 4, level 5 we're at, but let's start looking at a level 1. Just walking into that space and finding out how can you expand your space. I think especially for a lot of people who don't have family, they live alone. This is a great place for you to get out and just meet people socially, because again, I don't assume everybody has transportation.
I mean, give ALP credit. That gaming division is their largest
It's like
division now.
awesome.
It's their
Don't
largest
they have
division.
like esports competitive games in there?
I'm working on that. Though. Sure, I'm working on that. But trust me, I'm almost there. Almost there.
You almost there?
I'm almost there. We're almost
Because
there.
that's one thing
We
I
just
think
need a
would be
couple more
a
signatures. We're
couple
almost
more
there.
signatures, because that
But
would be so
but
awesome.
but when you think about it, you're right. So social services being able to take out AOAs,
Hmm.
active older adults, and going into those senior citizens' homes and centers,
Yeah.
like my mother who goes to one in South Carolina, right? And how cool it is to have. So think about it from this perspective. You have the local high school kids who that's their chance to add volunteer hours
Hmm.
on their high school transcripts, going to the AOA centers and showing Grandma Reese, Mother Reese, my mother,
How to use her device.
how to use her device and how to create her avatar
Right.
that she can sign up for her health services.
Hmm.
That we've connected her with her
Hmm.
little small clinic doctor in our
Yeah.
hometown, and how cool it is that she now has an avatar because that's going to connect her to her grandkids,
Exactly.
right? Who's going to say, "Oh, grandma has an avatar." But what grandma's actually getting is, see, we thought getting telemedicine was metaverse.
Say that again. We thought telemedicine was
Tele was
right.
metaverse because we was like, "Oh, I don't have to go in there." And granted, I'm
Right.
glad. I hate that the pandemic happened, but telehealth needed to be in the forefront
Yeah.
a
A
long
long
time
time
ago.
ago. Yeah.
But now it's here. So how do we make it cool?
How do
Because
we
that's what
take
we're
it up?
talking about. How do we
How do
make
we
it
level
cool?
it up now?
Now we got to level it up.
Yeah, we gotta level it
I
up.
still want to see your face, my
Right.
colleague, but maybe I just want to just see a cool face,
an avatar
and
of
it's
you.
more than just a
Yeah.
cartoonish look, but it's really me asking my oncology piece
That's
and
the
all that.
point that a lot of people don't understand. An avatar is not always, you can create yourself into a rabbit or a turtle. It's actually you can look like
You
yourself.
look like
You can
yourself.
scan in a version that will look just like you, just as
Yeah.
real as you, and have conversations. Now, of course, you have to understand in order for you to go through a physical checkup, you're still going to need certain devices
Absolutely.
to assist you. So that's where we were talking about being able to hit and making that inequality within the communities kind of like open. You if you remove that inequality and make it inclusive,
Which is a device issue.
and
Right.
that's a device issue. So we do understand that, but like you said, if you're online, and here's an excellent example, people who were going through collecting unemployment, this would have been a great space
Oh
for the
my god!
metaverse.
Instead of waiting 4 or 5 weeks,
Oh my gosh, right?
I was reading the
Right,
blogs and hearing the horror stories during
right.
that time, and I didn't get my money. The systems
Exactly.
crashed, all the states. So now we're going to
Yeah,
help the states distribute those social services,
exactly.
right? What we're talking
Yeah,
about, saying I can walk in from a metaverse or walk into that room and I didn't
yeah,
leave my home, or I didn't sit on the phone for 2 or 3 hours waiting. Oh my God, they finally picked up so
right.
I could get my $300 a week or whatever I think
Yeah.
that was. And I mean, look, we all went looking at that. You're exactly right.
And it would require, and we've talked about this, upgrading the municipality and the government's network infrastructure to support that type of interaction, because right now customer service was a stretch for them. They had to basically get people outside of that space and contracted them just to answer the phones, right? So it will require them to upgrade their infrastructure, and we get that. And that's one thing that we need to understand. We're not saying that this is going to happen tomorrow, but we're saying it is in the process of
So we
happening.
need all the wireless
We
carriers involved. So
Exactly.
it sounds like so one of the steps you talked
Exactly.
about, what's one of the first step? And I'm going to say to everyone, hey, for all of the wireless carriers out there, and for all of those who are distributing these services, you know, Xfinity and all the Comcast and all of them, looks and you it's great that you maybe have reduced your prices
Yes.
for those who probably not using as much of the bandwidth and all that. But at the end of the day, this is really about now looking at these, and I'm sure there are some programs they are activating, so
Mhm.
I'm not going to knock them for that. For stuff I may or may not know what they may be doing internally. However, when we do think about that perspective, we now have to say to ourselves, like, wait 1 minute here. There's a social disparity, and now we know that
Mhm.
of getting healthcare needs. We're about to turn this into now going. There's a device. There's always going to be a device shortage, but
Yeah.
they do have phones and all those different
Yeah.
things. So now we also have to think about how to again we go into those healthcare centers. Like, Wayne Gretzky said it best: skate to where the puck is going, not to
Yeah.
where it is.
Is.
And quite honestly, we kind of already
We need to, yeah,
is.
we're already at the is.
We're at the is
We're at
already,
the is.
but
Yeah.
we can't make them afraid. Earlier this week, I ran into a young man with a marketing company, and he's talking about how he worked with nonprofits and all that, and we were going to sidebar. And we will, because now we're talking about a marketing message that has to go out that makes everyone feels comfortable
Comfortable using that tech, and I'm going to tell you because I do kind of work in
using
that
tech. You got to
space.
say that again. I don't think they heard you.
Using tech,
Using tech, a marketing
marketing
message
message,
using tech
using
to
tech.
AOAs and everyone.
It is. It's huge because I work in that space for branding and marketing, and we create a 360 strategy on how to support your brand. And now, when we say 360, that does include the metaverse, right? So when we talk to people, and I have to be totally honest with you, when I meet with clients, especially small startups, a lot of them don't even have a domain name at this point. They don't have a website. They don't have any social media signatures. So when they come to me, I'm creating everything from graphic to social media to apps to websites. I'm creating all their digital documents. I went to
You're doing
um,
all the heavy lifting.
I'm doing all the heavy lifting because even like when the doctor's offices, I said to them, okay, why is it all your documents left online where people can just fill them out and then like send them, right? You go in and you fill them out right in your site and you click submit. Why am I coming in and still touching paper?
So we're back to what we
So
said earlier. We got to
exactly.
have the Bianca's world.
We have to, and that's the whole thing. So it's like, how do you introduce that concept to people who still don't understand the impact, not only of what we're doing right now with social media? Now you're asking to jump over social media and jump into the metaverse. So it's like we're just getting these people tagged up with the social media, right?
So back to what we said earlier, we watched two of our other esteemed colleagues speak
Mhm.
this morning. So we need to go down to Clarksville, Mississippi, who has a little small clinic, and we got to have Bianca,
Pilot a program
The
because
Bianca's World, and her other
yeah, Sally, she,
brainiac that was on the panel
yeah,
with her this
Sally,
morning, and we say to ourselves, "Hey, doc, this is the only clinic in this town
right?
of 5,000 people, but the senior citizen population is really heavy there.
It is.
You know, and
But you know what
there's a
really
famous
helps
actor who's from
from there?
Clarksville, Mississippi, gray face.
Are you talking about Morgan Freeman?
Morgan Freeman's from
Okay, I just
Clarksville,
want to be
Mississippi,
clear. I love
right?
Morgan Freeman. I
So
think he's
so you got
amazing.
him as a voice. Now imagine him
Right.
his message inside the Bianca's World, and we're addressing this, and she addressed that only clinic
Right.
that those that we now. So that's a community message. There's a one big Baptist church there that everybody
Yes.
goes to because their grandma went to, and their grandma and everybody else went to it, and saying you're now about to get your health service
Right.
other than telehealth, which we still need that,
Hmm.
telemedicine. And now, hey, grandma, we're going to create you a world. I don't want to just use the word avatar. I'm going to
Right.
say a virtual world so that you can sit at home. So now we got to work with the carriers to ensure they have the
Yes.
devices to be able to do that, to say you can go get your health service right here and you didn't leave your home.
You did not leave her. And the other thing is those
And it
health
was cool.
services,
We
they
connect
tie
you with your
in.
grandparents, your grandkids.
And that's one of the things that Sally was talking about. You know, she is a virtual clinic when she does training and she trains the lab staff. But when you look at it taking a step further, if they're doing telehealth, they're doing metaverse health. When they go in there and let's say you need to order blood work, it's like creating a concierge service. Now the blood bank is coming to them in a mobile unit to draw their blood, and then so you're not going anywhere. You're ordering all of these services as if you were actually at the doctor's office, and so you're still getting the same type of service, but in the metaverse, it's like you're getting a concierge service right from your chair at home. And you're able to really work and kind of talk through all the different issues with no limitations. Because I know with women, a lot of times, if you're a woman who's going through a lot mentally, emotionally, and one of my friends, she's like absolutely amazing, but she has severe anxiety,
Oh, there you go.
severe anxiety. And a lot of times she just needs that quiet space, but she can't find it because, a lot of us are working at home. Your kids are at home, right? So you feel like you never get away from the space that you're in, and you feel like you're basically being smothered. You
Right,
can't breathe
right, right.
because she breaks before when she was going to work. She couldn't break at 3 o'clock to put something in the crock pot to eat at 5. You know what I mean? She was actually in a workspace away from
Mm-hmm,
home. So
mm-hmm.
a lot of this, to your point, it's like giving people an opportunity to look at how they can really focus on their mental health, how they can really focus on any health issues like diabetes. Sally mentioned how she's doing a virtual 5K. You can run in a 5K virtually and not even leave your house.
But that's a social one again.
Yes.
So that's a health one. I mean, think about it. Research has shown that by 2026, 25% of the
Hmm.
global population will spend at least 1 hour per day in the metaverse. That's huge. We're talking about 25% of the
Hmm.
global population by
And please
2026. I'm sorry,
emphasize.
we're in 2023 right now.
Right. Emphasize that's totally different than being on Zoom and Teams and all of
Absolutely.
that. This is a whole different situation. And I've heard like a lot of people compare, doing virtual meetings, collaborative meetings in Zoom or Teams or whatever you're meeting in as equivalent to the metaverse. It's two different situations. Like I explained to you guys, I have a collaborative workspace where I work with my team because they are global. Where we meet in the metaverse because to put them on a plane, to fly them to my location, to meet with everybody, we remove that expense. We just meet in our global work office, and when I can actually see their presentations. So, Sally said, whatever you see on YouTube, you can display in this world, but you can also display. It's like a whiteboard, and you can write
Hmm.
on this whiteboard
Right.
right from your tablet because it's called a white tablet thing, and they have it in Zoom as well, by the way, people. But the thing is that you can use this to then walk through like problem solving. You can do a workflow for an app or a website. You can talk through project management tools. All of those things are there, but it really reduces the cost of travel.
Yeah, George Orwell. I remember George Orwell wrote this article talking about called 1984. So it's 1984 called No cameras will be needed, because he was really predicting an opposite. He was really talking about how this world's going to turn to be, how avatars and all these things going to be stored in this log, and these small gestures, how it's going to get better, how more realistic with
Hmm.
eyelids and everything really. And we
Yeah.
saw some of the stuff I showed talked about yesterday,
Yes.
right? How you can really
Yes.
go right there and put any character or face, but it's your real
Which I
face.
love, by the way. You
Yeah,
created
yeah,
a
yeah,
virtual
well, yeah,
Christine.
absolutely. I can't wait. We have to work as collaborative with that because that was the need, right? The market is
Mhm.
big. 30% of the population, even 2020 by 2026, we talked about this, will be, engage everything from their leisure activities,
Yes.
the educational activities. So, listen, at the end of the day, we're not really talking about 72 months from now.
No.
It is February
It's
of 20
here.
of
It's here
2023.
right now.
I'm going to say, actually, we should be saying we're actually about 2 years away from it,
Mhm.
but we is here now. This
Mhm.
augmented reality, we're talking about augmented reality
Yes.
glasses and all
Yes.
these different things. And then just talking about, look, we know most of the populations, as we talk about addressing these social
Yeah.
services, thing or can't afford these pieces of
Right.
$499. So, but that's a whole nother issue that we have to address, and that's going to
Right.
be how do we distribute it? Would have to be making it cost effective
Right.
in all of our communities. I'm going to say underserved communities.
Communities. Yeah.
That is the I was so you mentioned some of what's the first step. Well, the first step is how do we make it cost effective? So we can address the categories, right? We already say,
Right.
hey, South Carolina, hey, North Carolina, Georgia, Tennessee, Alabama, obesity, high obesity states. See
Mhm.
how easy it is? I could pull our colleagues of like we've talked with the last couple
Mhm.
of days and say, hey, let's have a strategy meeting, and they're gonna say that makes sense. Let's go address the high
Right.
obesity states. Let's go address the states that have the challenging, most ranked bottom five in the country of education.
Mhm.
See how easy that is? I could pull all those people together, John, and all of them together, one meeting. However, they're going to say, okay, I'm going to say, okay, now how do we address what I heard earlier today was
Mhm.
the nonprofits don't have the money.
Right. The
Okay, so how do
nonprofits
we
don't have
address
the
making it
money.
affordable to get the glasses to be
Right.
able to, like, oh, that's going to sound cool. We could pull Bianca and her company in 1 minute. She said, oh, let me build this. I'm going to say, okay, now how do we address for them getting that social service?
So you know,
Cost effective.
cost effectively. So Sally, who really kind of pushed that out to make it very clear, Sally is with the ARP group, and she's like a trendsetter in that space. So when you think about it, she's been in it since 2003. So this is nothing for her, and she's like one of the legends, I would call it, as she said, OGs in this. So when you think about it from that perspective, she's like she doesn't even wear any eye gear. She's just in the metaverse on her laptop and in her tablet and her devices. So again, a lot of us want to get fully immersed in it. There's a project that I'm working on called The Cave. And the cave is where you can actually walk into the metaverse. You're totally it's inclusive that space, but we're using it with the veterans to help them get over PTSD.
Mhm.
And so that's the thing. It's like there is some spaces where you can actually just use it from your device, be a part of that space. But at the same time, it's not a cost effective thing. But your municipalities, if you look it up, all of them should have a diversity, equity, and inclusion department, but it's called digital equity and inclusion. And there are most municipalities across the United States. Reach out to them if you're in that age group or you need certain supports, and they have partnerships that they can help you with. I know that because I help our diversity, or our digital equity and inclusion
I mean, when we're
division.
thinking about it, my esteemed colleague, the metaverse is surreal,
Yes,
meaning there's no law of physics to it.
there's not.
There is it's a state of really that there's this belief that there's no stopping it, meaning
Mhm.
there is no limit.
No limit.
There's
It's
no one that
limitless.
anywhere can put a physical law. Well, I'm going to say a law of physics to
Yes,
defining what the metaverse is,
is.
and we can challenge them. You're my chemistry graduate, you know
Yes,
that. We could win that argument all day. Well,
all
you
day.
could. I'll just stand there and support you with the thoughts, right? And make myself sound smart with you, right? But you
Yeah,
am I telling the truth?
you are.
There's no
Yeah,
law of
it's no
physics here. This
law.
is no Newton thing here.
It's
See, I
not.
didn't learn that part.
You did. I can do
That part.
flips in the metaverse, but in reality, I can't. But as far as exercise, and I want to say way before the metaverse went all the way live, I remember Wii. And if you got a Wii game, and it would create like a little mini Wii of you,
So
right?
you could to
You could
play
work
and actually
out,
work out.
right? So that
And they
little
thought
mini,
that was
they
rocket
thought that was
science.
Rockstar because
Right.
I got it and I created a
He was like,
little
I'm working out.
Christine. I said, well, why is that little Christine so chunky? Like
Right.
I wanted more
It
reality.
wasn't
It
you.
wasn't me. It was a little chunky Christine, and you could pick the hair and all that kind of stuff. Remember that? So that was our first
It
experience
really was, now that I
exposure
think about
to,
it. Yes, yes.
the
Yeah,
metaverse was the
yeah.
Wii game,
Yeah, right.
right?
Yeah.
Which is really awesome.
Yeah.
But the thing is,
Which was less than 10 years ago.
that was less than 10 years ago, and
Okay.
see how far we've taken it. But now when we look at, the metaverse is like a conglomerate of a couple different things. So when you talk about AI, you look at how we use AI within our world, and now these things are in our vehicles. Now our vehicles are talking to us. But
Absolutely.
what people don't realize is that AI was actually in the beginning when we did Pac-Man. Pac-Man would then figure out which direction you thought you're going to. Remember, the ghost would try to cut you off. That was predictive analysis even then, and we didn't even know it. We were being test dummies for
I
all of
have a
that
Miss
stuff.
Pac-Man machine in my house. You just made me
Honey,
think
I
about that.
love Pac-Man. So when I used to
Oh,
look
Miss
at
Pac-Man,
Miss
she's the best.
Pac-Man, when I used to look at Miss Pac-Man, I used to say, "Well, how can I beat these ghosts getting to me?" And so it would
Ah,
use predictive
you're
analysis
improving
even
your
then.
cognitive skills,
Exactly.
extending your patient's life.
Exactly,
Right.
using Miss Pac-Man, which was Rockstar. So the thing is, the people don't understand all along the way we were doing it. And then when we came out with the video gaming systems, and a lot of parents were against it, where their kids could go in and they were fighting, right? They were creating these characters and going in, and now you could fight your friend down the street that you really weren't playing with because you joined them in the virtual world of gaming, right? So what I'm going to say is that we were being introduced to this all along from the beginning of time, and they had no idea that all the data that they collected then turned into what we call the metaverse.
But there's this creation of what I call there was what was happening was where we were then and where
Hmm.
we are now when we look at some of the technology that we've seen over
Yeah.
the last couple of days is now been a higher degree of personalization, wouldn't you
Oh
say?
my gosh, it's
That's
huge.
that we're there now, higher degree of
How about you could
personalization.
video talk to your whole family right from your phone?
Oh yeah, well, I
When
can
we
have Shaq wake me up now,
Exactly.
right?
And how about in your
But you got to
vehicle?
pay for him to talk to you.
Well, you do have to pay for him and Samuel L. Jackson to
Yeah,
talk to
yeah.
you in your
Right,
car,
right, right.
and be your
Then
GPS
I realized
person.
that wasn't worth that 3.99
Right,
a
it's
month.
really not worth
No.
it, and I'd rather just have Siri just come
Siri,
and
just
talk
tell me
to
where I'm
me
going.
or whoever. But the thing is that we've made so many advancements. Like, one of the things that I really love is that for women, if you're looking at purchasing makeup, you can go to Lancome, scan your face in, and you can pick different makeup and say, "Oh, this looks good on me. That doesn't look good on
So
me."
let's talk about the social service
Yes,
distribution, corporate. We talk about
yes,
corporate social distributing services. Shout out to Procter and Gamble with that, even though this is not a commercial endorsement deal,
exactly.
but STEM City, we will be coming to you for that Procter and Gamble. Well, let's think about what you just said.
Mhm.
How deeper with that, from a research
Yeah.
standpoint, allowing that to be able to talk about your skin pigmentation
Mhm.
and possible maybe something from the remember
Yeah.
service, health services, social service,
Mhm.
nursing, and health practitioners. So let's talk about that person
Mhm.
from a skin doctor standpoint,
Yes.
being able to say before you buy that makeup, hey, we've addressed and seen that this scan, you can't use this type of makeup.
There you go.
Now that takes before you make the purchase
Yes,
because what the company saw was the end user purchase.
they did.
What you wanted to say, hey, maybe that type of makeup can't go on your face.
Yes.
So before we go and create this,
Right. We need to
we
look at.
need to address this health service disparity because that's a health service.
And that's one of the things when you go through that health check, it asks you your skin type. It asks you whether or not you're how much water you drink, your hydration level, and all those different things. So it is impacted, but again, we need to go deeper, and that is a way for it to translate over to the healthcare services. One of the
Right,
biggest
right,
impacts that I see that was really great yesterday, you shared this thing with me
hmm,
because I happen to love sports, right?
right,
So when
right,
you combine sports with math, you're just like in my dream space,
right.
and that's like really rock star. But when I played the game, I realized if I'm a student that's having problems in school, right?
Hmm.
What's the best way to get a kid really engaged with what you're doing? It has to be something sports related. It's for males and females, so let's not get consumed with that as a football, basketball, soccer, or baseball. But the thing is, it asks some challenging questions, and it's really
Right.
helping you work on your cognitive skills. But not only that, your process skills when you're taking tests.
Absolutely.
A lot of kids are
Which
not
is a
great test
pressure.
takers.
That's
It is a
anxiety.
pressure.
That's a social service
Exactly. But
problem.
you're
Anxiety
training them to be better test takers
by
because you only have
saying
so much time.
and
Yes,
eliminate what's the most obvious
exactly.
to what is there.
The
So
process of elimination, which is
process
problem
of
solving, and
elimination.
that you have a certain amount of time to answer that question. Because I find that a lot of people, that anxiety and stress,
Is like I got to answer
they
fast.
just walk away. They go, "I'll just take this
I just
answer."
skipped that.
Yeah, I'll just skip
Which is
that.
now we were
Yeah,
addressing now talking about low test scores and our kids don't
exactly.
test well.
Yes.
No, it was about test taking techniques.
Test taking techniques. And not only that,
Yeah.
you can access this information 24 hours a day. There is no window versus when you're in a brick and mortar location or actually when you're hiring tutors, outside tutor support, you have to make an appointment to work with them. And so that's the thing. You need to think big picture and figure out how can I support my student or my child and help them increase their content comprehension in certain content areas. I love the game, right? And if I could have played it all night, I probably would have.
Whatever, it's addictive.
Right.
So
It's
just
addictive.
so I mean,
Right.
we're very proud that we're Blaze Track and we support
Thank
that.
you. That's
You
that's
know,
awesome.
you said it earlier about the social impact of this, and we were really proud. And you saw the article, I mean,
Yeah.
the press release of, South Carolina Department of Juvenile Justice Blaze Fire Game announced a groundbreaking partnership that addresses what I always told we our company. We were very proud that we were going to erase this myth that everyone behind the fence was a criminal.
Right.
So working with Department of Juvenile Justice, South Carolina Department of Juvenile Justice, and the state of South Carolina Blaze Fire Game, we announced our partnership this week. That came out national
Congratulations
news.
on that.
Yeah, thank you. It was a lot of
I'm
hard work from
happy
the
for
entire team.
you,
Like,
but I'm
just
happy
me.
for the services you'll be provide to the youth.
Yeah, our
And I think
team, our
that's
team is
amazing.
amazing. To everyone that plays for our game, our entire team, you know how much appreciate everyone there and all the hard work and hours that took us 5 years to really help that deal materialize. But to be able to help K through 12
Yeah.
for those who feel like they have no hope,
Hope.
and that's a social service.
Mhm.
How see again back to we're committed as a corporate partner to be distribute,
Mhm.
walk the talk, and now they will be learning skills of cybersecurity,
Yeah.
video game design,
Soft skills.
soft skills, right? It's more than just
Collaborative workspace,
yep,
how to work
yep. And
properly with
so
other
now,
people.
research has
Yeah.
shown that those who gain or are involved in some type of content creation game, crime goes down 30%. There's research that just shows that. So now we're saying not only will you be making money by earning a certification
Right.
through our Blaze Fire Game academies, we know for all those youth, but the fact that they see hope in an
Yes.
outlining, that's improving. Remember, we have to take this from a holistic
Yes.
community approach. And if we're doing that, because distribute social service education is one of those categories in social services, then we did that. So we took a step back even as a company and said, okay, what were the social services departments? Because everybody wants to run and try to get money from the police, and
They
you look.
do.
By the time we keep addressing that,
Yeah.
we're like, okay, where do we start? Let's start with our youth
Right.
because our youth are the content creators. Our youth came out born with an iPad in their hand and a
So
phone
they're
in their
ready.
hand. They were birthed with that.
But today we do realize that the lowest test scores are now versus when we were growing up and we didn't have all that tech.
But it's not technology
It's
fault.
not technology's fault. And that's one of the things that I'm always pushed back and alarm. People want to stay with traditional concepts when it comes to education, not understanding these kids were born with a tablet in their hand.
They were born.
So you might as well go in and just use that to support long-term gains. And one of the things I think you guys did very well is that you integrated, financial literacy
Right.
into a space that you would normally never associate it with,
We
which
made it
was
cool.
sports, and you
We
made it cool.
we, we was like we was using the word bruh. We
Right,
we move
exactly.
with them. When they
Yeah.
move with their we talk their talk.
But not only in one of the things that
And
I
we're working
try
close with the teachers with that.
it it enhanced the understanding of understanding a playbook, which I love because now you can look at, okay, I'm not just watching a football game, I'm actually managing how they play. And so
Right.
now you have to understand. And so to me, when I see X's and O's, those are algorithms to me to success. So if you want to pass or you want a running game, those things make sense, but it really enhances your understanding of another area that maybe
and,
you
and
weren't familiar
improving
with.
and improving your improving your decision making
Yes.
skills because both personally and professionally, if I make this move
Yes.
or if I call the wrong play, it could end. I could end up
Yes.
behind these the fence again,
Right.
where I can't just go to McDonald's like I want to,
Exactly.
or I can make call the right play
Mhm.
and score 10 yards or score a
Yeah.
touchdown because I learned a job skill, career skill. So to Superintendent Floyd Lyles, South Carolina Department of Juvenile Justice, who's also an HBCU grad, Benedict
All
College,
right,
along with
HBCUs.
me, South Carolina State University, HBCU grad, proud. And
Isn't it great to be a
it
HBCU
is. I
grad?
mean,
I
it's a space we
know.
came talking
I
about. But
love
so
that.
and so I look at our HBCUs
Mhm.
again, education, social services. But I always tell people, look, we can talk about what it produces and
Right.
all that. In addition to that DJJ deal, we're pipelining them
Yes.
to HBCUs. So those kids will actually also have the ability to earn dual enrollment credits to be able to go to South Carolina
Mhm.
universities or HBCUs if they That's where we're pipelining them also too, but also to whatever school they choose to go to. But it's options. It's
You have
now
more
they didn't
options.
have
They didn't
three
have
weeks
them
ago.
before. And that's the thing, being a graduate of DSU, I'm really proud of coming from Delaware State University.
Absolutely.
But the thing is that now you can actually put your organization, your company on the map. Our kids are playing esports. They're going to play these games anyways.
I just want to learn
And
how to build them.
so the thing is that earlier today, Bianca and Sally were talking about understanding the metaverse, right, and
Hmm.
where to go and what to do. One of the things that I want
Which is
people to
it
understand.
was only been coined the phrase since 1992.
Exactly. So the thing is, when you go in, you really need to define, all right, if I want to be in this space, where's the education facilities? So if you don't know and you're not sure, you can always go to stemcityusa.com. They have a lot of different services within STEM City that will familiarize yourself with the metaverse. So that way, that'll be like your test run. Get into the
I can walk
metaverse.
them out. Go to the education lobby. You can go straight through there.
He's
Go
already
to
telling you
go
when you
to the
go to STEM
education
City
lobby. Go
USA.
go into that lobby, and you're gonna see something called HBCU College Engineering Fair. You click
There you
on
go.
that,
Just
and
walk
you'll see
straight
a
through.
list of HBCU you can apply to schools right then and there. But
Isn't that
but but
awesome?
see how easy you talked about it, and how
Yeah.
easy we're talking about this is what I'm really gonna like even more is as STEM City USA
Yeah.
and what they have now. They also have a multicultural center,
They do.
tab in there. There's a health and wellness
It
center.
is.
So think about how what we're talking about today, how being able to incorporate those social
Mhm.
workers, and so now there's a reach out that we have to think about to the National Social Work
Yes.
Association, right? The
Uh-huh.
National Black Nurses Association,
Association. Yes.
right? Native Tribal American Nurses Association, the National Hispanic Service Association, National Black MBA, National Asian Black, National Asian MBA Association. Then we're talking about the American Medical Association, which is all the black doctors, and then, I mean all the doctors, and then the National Medical Association, which are the black doctors. The National Black Lawyers Association (NBA) has 60,000 black lawyers in it,
Wouldn't it be great if you can go in and you
and you
can
just print
actually all their
all
in the
their
metaverse?
social services world under STEM City on that,
That would
under the
be
health and wellness
rock
one,
star.
because we're going to keep seeing what we're seeing.
Mhm.
So social services, we have to think back as we talk about, and maybe as we look to wind down and talk about these subjects of how does the metaverse distribute social services? Well, you first, like we did today earlier, everyone, that was a defining or looking at what those areas are. There are
Right.
education, there are healthcare, there are those
The
buckets,
day-to-day
the
services that
day
you
to
need.
day
Yep.
service that we need every day to say, I this is what I need
Right.
to survive. And if I need a hospital is one of them, that is a health service.
Yes.
And then peeling back the onion,
Mhm.
back in the day, there's a station on VH1 called What's Behind the Music, right?
Way back.
I'm way back. I'm gonna take it way back. What's right? See, and what's behind the music when we saw the behind the scenes, what really happened
Right.
behind the music, and this is where we are now. We're peeling back the onion and distribute social services. How the metaverse can be so beneficial to all of you.
It would expand our
It
demographic
will expand our
and
demographic. It will.
provide more services to a larger population of people who are in need.
We're making it cooler for them to get to.
Exactly. And the thing is, for all the people who are not on the end user experience and you're in the back end, that means everyone that's running data mining, data analytics, predictive
You
analysis,
just created many more
data
jobs.
warehouses. You've created a lot more jobs, but not only that, now you can actually pinpoint specifically where the need is within these communities down to a zip code. So it's really helping us to use where we can actually spend money more efficiently and accurately to hit those pinpointed areas instead of guessing or assuming. Because by the time, and we know this, the data that we saw 2 seconds ago is now old data. It's
Absolutely.
old data. So now you're dealing with more relevant real time data to accurately pinpoint where the need is. And then that way, we're spending money more efficiently. And to your point, there's a lot of companies who wanted to really support, black owned businesses and ventures, but they weren't able to pinpoint exactly where the need was, at that point. And that's a pivotal point in every conversation. So I guess we're both saying in order to equally distribute social services, you need to think about the front end, but then our folks on the back end is going to help you run more efficiently.
Right. So, closing statement. Um,
It's not like so
You believe
fast.
in your opinion, my esteemed colleague,
Yeah.
the metaverse can help distribute social services. In your opinion, how? Very quick.
I think it will be able to efficiently and distribute social services throughout the globe if we were able to use the data points that's needed to support the people who truly need it at the point in time that they do, in correlation with mobile units that can go out and support what these people are doing within the metaverse. I don't want people to think the metaverse can handle all your needs, but it can address 90% of your needs with still that human touch of someone coming out to get your blood or to help assist you with dropping off food. Wouldn't it be great if you could say that I'm hungry and go into the metaverse, go into a virtual market, and they deliver your food to you?
Yeah.
Like literally, if
It's
you're
happening in Japan right
it's
now.
and that's the whole thing. So I know people are like, we're doing Walmart pickup, but this is not we're not talking about Walmart pickup.
Nah.
We're talking about people who have on social services and getting state aid or support. And that's the thing. This is a really big deal that can be reduced.
In closing, I would say distributing this is a very important subject. You know, we have a lot of challenging from racial inequity to healthcare inequities to tech inequities. There's a gap there. So when we say inequities, you have to really address the word the gap. But the metaverse allows us to be able to distribute these social services by literally erasing the digital divide. I believe that is what I believe the value of this is. We're committed to it. All of us here, our companies, our
Yeah.
partnerships, our future partnerships. And then when we think about a tool like
Yeah.
STEMCityUSA.com being able as one of the metaverse ways to be able to do that, we're very proud to say that when you go to that, look up the health and wellness section, look up the multicultural section, look up the education section, tap onto that. So because the tools are there, and it's not a commercial. This is really about us saying that the work is being done,
Mhm.
and we're not talking about 25% of the population in 3 years that will be on the metaverse. America and in the world, we're here now. So I would like to thank you
And
for
thank
spending time
you.
with me and for STEMCityUSA.com as we close out.
You know, one quick thing though before we close out. Digital inequity
Mm.
is a roadblock, right? But we talked about it earlier. Folks, if you don't have Wi Fi connectivity, that's a major issue within itself. If you don't have devices. So please reach out. We have in every municipality, I'm going to say this again, it is called the Digital Equity and Inclusion Divisions. And they really focus on this because they want to make sure people have what they need. If you can't pick up and talk to T-Mobile or Verizon and Comcast, contact them. They already have formed partnerships, and let them know what your needs are. And that's the first step. So you still got to use the phone. Still got to use the phone or get on their website. Um, but dive in and talk to them and find out what support resources they have for you because they do, and a lot of them are based on economic need and also age. So there's
Right.
different devices and services based on which one of those areas that you fall in those categories. So I didn't want to leave that out before we close out today.
Yeah, the mobile device divide, or bring your own device and have your own device at the
Yeah,
home. One, cost barrier,
yeah,
even though there are a lot of them out there, and then you could
yeah.
get the cheaper ones, but then they have to be effective. So it's going to be really
You do.
cool working with some of these providers. I mean, there's some companies that we're heavily engaged with. That's going to be supporting some of our initiatives. One of the programs as we've talked about this, is Midlands Fatherhood Coalition
Yeah.
that we also partner with this year. It's out of South Carolina, where over 1,300, over 1,200 single fathers will be getting devices and getting education with a partnership through Morris College in Sumter,
I
South
love that.
Carolina, and
Yeah.
HBCU. Dr. Staggers and that family, where we're going to be helping 1,200 fathers learn upskill themselves, through certifications like cybersecurity, video game design, project management, those relevant job skills that are needed today, supply chain and logistics, which
Those
is
are
oh,
huge.
it's huge. Like, and being able
They
to
are.
finish those in 3 and 4 weeks on certifications,
It's awesome.
and without going into debt,
I'm going to
it
tell
is a
you,
major thing. So I'm
those
so
are
proud of our
major
team for making
things.
sure we did that.
You guys did a great job. And I'm going to tell you, being a former chief information officer, one of the largest school districts in Detroit, we saw the need not only for kids, but for families. And we did our very, very best to supply over 50,000 kids with devices that they could
That's
take
huge.
home. We also made sure that 8 of our schools were like totally on board with online learning. And that was a really big shift. But I'm really grateful I had that opportunity to do that in that space because it really taught me a lot about the humanity part of this, and
As I
making
say,
sure,
that part.
yeah, the humanity part of this. And I don't want anybody thinking the metaverse, the humanity part is not there, but it is. But now transitioning and running my own company, it's really the same approach that I take to any project that I work and I partner with people on. I really want to sit down and do focus groups to find out what the specific needs are. I think a lot of times at a high level, we think what we need in social support is not really specifically aimed at the right people. So I just want to make broader conversation to continue this conversation. If you're watching us and you're saying, hey, this is a great idea, you can reach out to both of us on LinkedIn. Great opportunity for us to kind of see where you guys are at, what type of support you may need in your municipalities, your school districts, your companies, right?
You
To
know,
help us with that.
you're making a point,
Yeah.
and so in a subliminal way, you said it directly and indirectly was um the people who are making decisions in the room need to also look like us,
Yeah, we do.
and that's okay.
Thank you.
And then when they don't look like us,
Yeah,
we have to be comfortable saying that's okay. It's,
right.
like no, there's it's all love here. So we're
Mhm.
are we because at the end of the day, it's about building communities. As
It
I
is.
tell people when I walk in rooms, and more often than not, I'm the only one in the room that looks like me. I
Exactly.
take that out of the context. Like I'm a military kid, so born and bred. So for me, I'm like it's not a color thing, pack thing. I'm like all
Yeah,
I care about is one thing in this room. I don't care if I'm the only one in that room and there's 100 people in the room. I've been in a room. I was the only one that looked like me in a room of 700 people. I said I don't care about anything else about what do we get as an impact. And by the way, I am not divorced for all of Black America while we're in this room.
exactly. We're not, but
so
that's the thing. You're
so
not the voice,
but what
but
I
it
will
is
be
present.
is the one that says
Yeah,
I care about the results, impact that we will
right,
have with every decision that we make. And if me being in this room helps challenge you to think a
right.
little bit harder or a little bit deeper, just as if the same reason why you're in the room to help challenge me to think a little
Right.
bit harder and deeper about the outcome of this decision we're
Because that's
about
what
to
we're
make for
focused on.
thousands and thousands and thousands and
Thousands.
thousands and thousands and thousands of our youth
Mhm.
or our reentry or
Yeah.
our veterans, then we're all on the same
We're all on
page.
the same page.
That's it.
So again, in closing, make sure you check out STEM City USA. As you know, that there are clinics that you can go into in there, which the health check. I just want to say they built out STEM City, and it's a great way to expose yourself to that
I
space.
like the jazz room.
You like the jazz room? They have like this cafe. I just want to be clear. The cafe is really really cool. So if you've never been in a metaverse cafe,
Dave Stewart Jazz Cafe.
is that really? So you see, he's doing a shout out. So folks, it's not
Well,
just
you
for
got to do it for
students,
Dave Stewart.
right? So of course you can go and like we said, you can check out all of the HBCUs. You can actually complete your application process in there in the metaverse, which is again stemcityusa.com. Go in and check them out. I mean, and meet some different people. It's really awesome to expose yourself to that. I know when I looked at it the first time on a computer, it was so cool. You don't need eye gear, right? I said you
Don't
don't
even know
need
how
eye
I
gear.
get.
No eye
No,
gear. Just go in there and check them out. And folks, again, the whole purpose of this platform and this conversation is to really expose you to the opportunities that are out there. We know that the metaverse can make a difference
right.
across multiple industries.
Yeah, you can.
So just go ahead and just give it a shot and start off with STEM USA, stemcityusa.com, and introduce yourself to the metaverse.
Yeah, I'm just here. Thank you. We enjoyed our time with you, everyone. To my esteemed colleagues, always pound it out, and we're good to go. Thank you, everyone.